Good evening. Welcome to Chess Books 59. As I always have to say, I haven't done one of these for a while, but for all of that, you're very welcome. Got 3 books to look at today. The first of these is my very well-known author, Cyrus. Now, Cyrus has been writing books non-stop for Everyman, mostly. Not entirely. New in Chess has got 1 or 2, I think, for about the last 7 or 8 years. This is, you have to hand it to him, very brightly coloured. Look at the, just look at it. It's beautiful, isn't it? These days, 1d4 is often used as a precursor to quiet opening choices such as the London system, the Collet or the Trompovsky. I don't think that's right, and that's not how you spell Trompovsky anyway. In this book, the highly experienced chess author, you're telling me is, and coach, goes back to basics, outlining the aggressive repertoire for white based on 1d4, following up with the traditional 2c4. In other words, pawn to d4 and then 2 pawn to c4. The emphasis of the repertoire is to gain space as quickly as possible and set back the task of finding quick counterplay or face the risk of being overrun. He recommends f2, f3 against the Nimzo Indian, the Petrosian system against the King's Indian, and the flick knife for f4 and bishop b5 against the Benoni. It says it utilizes an ideal approach to chess study. The book is $19.99, and it includes an enormous amount of complete games. There's 2 pages here, and there's 6 games without even starting to count by Kasparov. 3 games by Petrosian, and Nakamura features Namidarov. Gets a couple in 2. Kramnik 4. Korchnoi 2. This is hot stuff. This is hot stuff. He recommends 4f3 in the Nimzo Indian. And he's got an index here. There. See? There we go. Let's see what else he recommends. And the King's Indian against 6 bishop e2. He recommends e5. So the pawns solidify. Chapter 3, he recommends 5 bishop f4 against the King's Indian. Okay, fair enough. Sorry, against the Grunfeld. In other words, he doesn't take on d5 as so many people do. Chapter 4, against the Benoni, he recommends 8 bishop b5 check, and then you take back. Normally you would parry the check with the b knight, but he recommends dragging back the f knight. Chapter 5, Benko Gambit, recommends 5 f3 against chapter 6, the Queen's Gambit declined. He recommends 3 knight c3. Chapter 7, the Chigorin, he recommends 3 knight c3. So do I. And against the Slav, chapter 9, he recommends knight c3. Chapter 10, against the Dutch, recommends 2 c4 and 3 knight c3 and 4 bishop g5. In other words, not the somewhat stereotyped g3, which can be played as early as move 2, can't it? Chapter 11, King's Indian, he recommends d6, 3d6, and then e5. So it turns it into an old Indian. Against the Budapest, he recommends knight c3, 4 knight c3. In other words, handing the pawn back immediately without a scuffle in the center and then playing 5b3. That's quite unusual, I would have thought, isn't it? Chapter 13, he recommends the old Indian move order. Probably that goes all the way back to Staunton. d4, d6, c4, e5, d5, f5, and then finally e4. So that's chapters, 13 chapters on all those lovely games. This is being written by Saras Lakdawala, who is an IM from America. This book was published a couple of years ago. Bibliography, there's 6 books by Gufels, Matthew Sadler, Shibakov, Glenn Fleer, and Boris Avrak. I can't really pronounce that name, never mind. And he even quotes one of his own books, his book on Carlsen. So there we are. He says this is his 40th chess book. Well, if it is, I haven't got all 40, but I've seen quite a few, thanks to Everyman. Thank you, Dan, at Everyman. Dan the man from Everyman. Yes, well, here's some fun against the Dutch. Look at the H-pawn turning up the board. Look at that. Looks like misprint. It's not a misprint. Okay, that's the first of the 3. The second one is by 2 guys. I think they're Polish. I ask to be forgiven if I'm wrong. Yes, I can't pronounce their names. I'm not going to try. There they are. There they are. Once again, it's a very nice cover, and it's an Everyman. www.everymanchess.com. And when this appeared, and it's been out for quite a while, it's been out for 3 years, it was $18.99. It may have gone up since, but one thing is for certain, you should want to have it. It deals with the line in the Queen's Gambit where black takes on c4, but not immediately. d4, d5, c4, e6, knight c3, knight f6, knight f3, standard fare. And now d takes c4, bishop g5, and instead of parrying it with bishop e7, you play bishop b4, and there's a flurry of excitement in the center. 6 e4, c5, bishop takes c4, c takes d4, knight takes d4, bishop takes c3 check, b takes c3, queen a5, so forth. All of these fairly well-worn themes, but here sharpened up like military buttons. He's got his brasso out. We have got chapters, 10 chapters, maybe even more. 11 chapters, how about that? 11 chapters. And we've got games by Alakine, Ding Liren, Philip, well, I say Guilian, but it's in fact pronounced Julian. I played him once. I should have won, actually. Kamsky, Karpov, you, my friend, are in good company. Boglibov, Kramnik, Ivanchuk, Aronian, practically a who's who of international chess. Anand. Well, let's have a little look through. Jacek Ilkzuk is a strong correspondence chess player with a senior international master title. The other guy is an over-the-board IM. And he's looking at a game from as long ago as 1923. This gives you an idea of the presentation. The games may be old, but the presentation is not. Anybody who knows Cyrus's books, as I'm starting to do, will know that they are friendly and comprehensive. They are never dull. There's a game here by Albin, not just in the notes, but the whole. Let's see, so 2 pages devoted to that. And here's a game by Grunfeld from the 1933 Folkestone Olympiad. I wish we'd have an Olympiad now in England. These are fairly light notes. See this? It's not going to give you a headache, is it? So that starts there and it ends there. There's a couple of diagrams. Gives you a flavour. This is the introductory chapter. And that's what I was reading to you. There's the main line being played out. Delay capture on c4, mobilization on both sides, and a sharp and interesting game in prospect. All of the moves, particularly from the white perspective, I think, very commonsensical. Nothing that need worry you. As I always say, and I'm pleased to say, sort of, I suppose, this is not a book for the faint-hearted, and this is not for beginners. If your playing strength is 1600, 1500, you might do better with a more general treatise, or you might do better to get some help from some stronger players and wait until you just have a burning desire to have this book. It won't, because it's so good, it won't go away. Chess dealers, second-hand book dealers maybe, will have it tucked away somewhere. I like to think. There's everything quoted here. I mean, on one page alone, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games quoted in the notes. So it's not even the stem game. What else can I show you to get a flavour of what's happening? There we are. Keep your eyes on that. It has diagrams, nicely laid out headings. It says it's a complete theoretical survey of an important variation. This is by the 2 Poles. The last book I want to look at is by Damien Lemos. Slightly smaller than the others. I don't think that matters, does it, really? It's 1899, and for the 3rd time I read out the, I was going to say email address, but it's not, is it? It's their website, www.everymanchess.com. Damien Lemos is a grandmaster. Enjoys a long and illustrious past, Queen's Gambit. It has been played by virtually all the strongest grandmasters in the history of chess. That's true. It'd be interesting to know if there were any that had never played it. I can't think of anybody, but there might be some. There are many defences that black can employ against the Queen's Gambit. It's easy to become confused by the countless options. Yes, it is. It uses illustrative games, well, don't they all? Typical tactics and strategies for both sides. The book tells you everything you need to know about playing the Queen's Gambit. Over 50 games with Grandmaster analysis. Let's face it, that's not messing around. 5 games by Kasparov. And coincidentally, 5 games by Carlsen. Game by Beliavsky. Several games by Ivanchuk. It's Peter Svidler. Yes, Asiriwan playing Larry Christensen. Most of the games are recent. Here's Portish Petrosian. 12th match game, Palma de Mallorca, 1974. All queuing up to have a match against Bobby Fischer. Insecure in the knowledge there never was one. After Reykjavik, was there? Anyway, you don't want to hear that. Let me just go through. Queen's Gambit declined. 6 Queen C2. The Tarrasch defense. 3 C5. C takes D5. E takes D5. The Slav defense. Capturing immediately on D5 and then playing the bishop out to F4. Looks trendy. Queen's Gambit accepted. So many options are explored. So after D takes C4, move 2, 3, E4, E5. So I would think this is for slightly weaker players. So the other one I said about 1700 ELO. So probably this would be 1650, 1600 upwards. The Albin counter Gambit to E5. And symmetrical D4, D5, C4, C5, the old Bronstein favourite. That is. Now, what else can I tell you about it? It was published 2 years ago. The author's a grandmaster from Argentina. He's a former Pan-American junior champion, was only 15 when he qualified for the IM title. He went on to become a grandmaster at 18. He also trains students at ichess.net. So if you want to become his student, say that the Chess Parrot sent you. Creating a repertoire is no easy task. No, it isn't. John M. suggested the Queen's Gambit, that's the English Grandmaster, subject of another book. I decided to take on the challenge. The result is in your hands now. Well, that's nice. There we are. Meat and potatoes. Meat and potatoes, ladies and gentlemen. To quote Larry Evans in 60 Memorable Games. Well, there's more than 16 memorable games here. What a lovely position. Look at that. Just feast your eyes on those centralized knights. And the white king scudding over here with no pawns in front of it. And confusion reigning in the center of the board. I love it. I love it. I love it. The Albin counter gambit. This is a serious gambit. Yes, it is. Some positions we reach from the Albin are far from standard, and find the correct moves can be a tough task. Yes, it can. And blow me down, here's a game between two old rogues from Berlin 1920, Tarrasch and Tartakova. So don't buy this book if you don't like older game references or You only want to study the recent encounters. However, I recommend you do buy this book. But that's just between you and me. Don't tell anybody I said this. Correspondence game. There's a game against Barua, the Indian. One of the first of the younger generation of Indians to come to England. I remember his father standing there, and they both had sort of the blazers on and the badge. And he drew with Tony Miles in the first round. So that was a pretty good start to a career, wasn't it? Here we have it. Going into a Dutch. Is it a late Dutch? Got that. So very structured. Look at that. In other words, white hasn't thought to play an early G3, and black is yet to deploy any of his pieces. But his pawns are all set out. He has not been dilatory. There's a game here by Garry Kasparov. I know that name, don't I? From somewhere. Another similar game. We continue to analyze some marginal lines by black, and once more we have a former world champions game to enjoy. It's nice to see it in those terms, to enjoy, rather than, dissect or even criticize. No, we have a game to enjoy. Well, this is over 200 pages, 252. I like it. I'm sure it would add to your knowledge, and it would help your chess. I hope very much you'll give it your time. Thank you very much. This has been the Chess Parrot signing off.